Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Crimson Dawn Lore, where I, the author, teach you, the viewer, about the world of Crimson Dawn. I know we might be bouncing back and forth in the timeline a bit, but I thought it'd be a good idea for today's video to be on the Second Russian Civil War. That being said, let's begin with today's video as there's a lot to cover. On November 7, 2017, Letyeskov and his forces staged a revolution against Kharkiv's forces in western Russia and the former Soviet republics, though they were unsuccessful in Siberia. As such, Kharkiv fled to Magnadon, which became the de facto capital of the Russian Reich. There, he began planning a daring maneuver with his remaining generals to first lull the Letyeskovists into a false sense of security by playing defense at the Siberian border, only to then launch a surprise assault on Moscow in spring of 2018. The Second Battle of Moscow in March of 2018 was the first of many notable battles of the Second Russian Civil War. While a massive tank battle raged between Soviet and Reich forces in the eastern outskirts of the city, Rick Letyeskov, along with Colonel Vladimir Ovchinnikov and Sergeant Katyusha Mayakova of the 12th Spetsnaz detachment, went on a daring mission to capture Reich General Nikolai Petrenkov, who was leading the assault. While the battle swiftly turned in favor for the Soviets as Reich forces were on the retreat, Letyeskov, Ovchinnikov, and Mayakova were transported behind enemy lines while Soviet air forces covered their approach. However, General Petrenkov anticipated their attempt to capture him, and in turn, they were captured themselves by the Reich's 19th Spetsnaz detachment. Petrenkov sent them to the same abandoned Soviet military base in the Ural Mountains that Letyeskov first sprang his revolution from, as Petrenkov made that base his own fortress. 4 days after their capture, Soviet General Sergei Vasilov summoned Colonel Nikolai Kalashnikov of the 13th Spetsnaz detachment to rescue Letyeskov and his comrades. They stealthily entered the base with suppressed AK-12s, killing General Petrenkov and his men, and returned Letyeskov, Ovchinnikov, and Mayakova to Moscow, where the people celebrated both their return and the victory of the battle that took place a few days prior. Letyeskov then gave a fiery speech in Moscow, declaring his safety and his determination to end the war and bring Kharkiv and his forces to justice. From 2018 until 2021, a stalemate prevented Soviet forces from breaking through at the Siberian border until Soviet intelligence caught wind of an experimental Reich Railgun Cannon. Named after Gungnir, which was Odin's never-missing spear from Norse mythology, this massive railgun cannon was stationed in Novosibirsk, and it destroyed anything that crossed the Siberian border from both the ground and in the air. General Vasilov devised a plan to both destroy the weapon and retrieve its blueprints. Letyeskov, Mayakova, Ovchinnikov, and Kalashnikov all volunteered to take part in the mission. They were escorted from the air by Railgun Team, an elite Soviet air squadron who drew inspiration from the same squadron in Ace Combat 6, as they prepared to jump from high altitude out of an IL-76 above the railgun cannon. The Reich's most elite air squadron, Aquila Squadron, flew Su-57s and intercepted Railgun Team's Su-33s, while also attempting to destroy the IL-76 that was transporting Letyeskov and his comrades. Railgun Team drew the enemy fighters away from their IL-76 in just enough time for them to parachute out of the plane, just before it was destroyed by air-to-air missiles. The 4 soldiers were able to make a stealthy landing, using the dogfight as a distraction. Mayakova used her suppressed SVD-12 to silently kill the guards outside of the entrance to the base of the cannon, which was also connected to a bunker system. Silently killing more Reich troops inside the facility, they were able to set an explosive charge onto the magazine and download blueprints from its control center. After making their exit in a stolen Vodnik while fighting off Reich troops, they set off the explosive charge and attempted to flee southward to the Soviet-controlled Kazakh border. Suddenly, a Reich Mi-28 attack helicopter chased them onto the road leading away from the now-demolished railgun cannon. Letyeskov manned the 14.5mm turret on the Vodnik and managed to shoot the cockpit of the helicopter, making it crash near the vehicle as it swerved into the woods, injuring them in the ensuing crash. Luckily, an old Great Patriotic War veteran named Helios Kalugin managed to pull them out of the wreckage and heal their wounds. The next day, Soviet forces were able to recover the 4 soldiers, sending them back over the Kazakh border. Thanks to their mission, the Soviet Provisional Republics were able to develop the T-14G, a railgun modification of the T-14 Armata, and the first prototypes were rolled out of factories and onto the battlefield a year later. In July of 2022, Soviet forces commanded by General Sergei Vasilov besieged the city of Krasnoyarsk. which is one of the last strongholds before the city of Magnadon. Meanwhile, Letyeskov and the rest of the 12th Spetsnaz entered the city to locate and kill Reich General Ivan Bugayev. The siege from the newly developed T-14G tanks helped put much-needed pressure on Reich forces, allowing Letyeskov and his Spetsnaz comrades to enter the city, though Bugayev attempted to escape via a Reich-controlled Mi-24 gunship. Letyeskov and his squad managed to tag the Mi-24 with a target designator, and striking team leader Vasily Makarov was able to destroy Bugayev's gunship with a missile before it took off, killing him and everyone else aboard. After Bugayev's death, Reich forces were in disarray, and a few hours later the battle ended in a Soviet victory. The year 2023 saw the Reich's momentum dwindle to a grinding halt, as Soviet forces won victory after victory in Siberia. This eventually led to the final and pivotal conflict of the war, the Battle of Magnadon, on August 3, 2023. While a massive tank battle raged outside the city, and while an equally impressive air battle between every remaining Reich fighter, including Aquila Squadron, fought against Striking Team and other Soviet pilots, Spetsnaz forces stormed the city and killed Kharkov and the remaining Reich generals. Sadly, Mayakova was killed by Kharkov when she and Letyeskov attempted to arrest him, which made Letyeskov immediately avenge her death by killing Kharkov with his rifle. An hour after Kharkov's death, the remaining Reich troops realized that they were being overrun, and they finally surrendered, bringing the Second Russian Civil War to a bittersweet end. Soviet forces stayed in Siberia for more than a year to rebuild the region, and by that time, the Soviet Provisional Republics reorganized themselves into the new Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, with Rick Letyeskov as its first premier. And that concludes today's episode of Crimson Dawn Lore. Tune in next week where I introduce the first and most unlikely ally of the new Soviet Union, the Greater Kingdom of Greece.